What's up guys, and welcome back to another eBay miniature rescue. Today we're going to go back in time a little bit, and I'm going to take the 3-part Orruk Warboss on Wyvern videos that I made, and I'm going to combine them all into one, do a new voice track, new music, and hopefully this will take care of some of the issues that a lot of people had. Starting with Vallejo Surface Primer White, I'm just going to go over the entire model since it had a nice black primer on there, probably through an airbrush, but it wasn't completed. So someone started this and they just never finished it. So I'm just going to cover everything and then grab some dwarf skin and fill in some of the skin parts on the wings and a little bit on the body. Using Sick Green, which is a lighter green, it's not as sick as it sounds. I'm going to cover pretty much the entire body, and I'm going to blend that in with some of the skin tones so that there's a nice gradient, especially under his chest, like on the rib cage. Using Athonian Camo Shade, I'm going to wash the entire model. And this is a good wash for this because we've got some skin tone and we've got the green. So we're going to bring in some of the green into the skin, and brown is going to kind of tie both of those colors together. So I want to clarify a little bit as to why I decided to re-edit and re-upload this video. For obvious reasons, the old 3-part series wasn't really enjoyed by a lot of people. Cutting in for a second, Xandri Dust for the bones and horns. So pretty much, when I started doing this, it was editing everything on my phone using all of the stock stuff that came with like iMovie, right? So I didn't have anything to do voiceover with, I didn't want to really. So pretty much I just typed everything in, and you can go back. I'm going to leave them up, for posterity, so to speak. But I pretty much just wanted to paint, get the idea of the colors and what orders I use them, just so I could have something for pretty much myself. Since then, a lot of people have joined us, and thank you so much for doing so. And I hope you enjoy this video a lot more than those other ones. The point being really that since people have come in, I've gotten a lot of requests to re-upload some of these older videos. So I thought that I wouldn't make it necessarily the weekly video, but I would try and upload these kinds of videos in the middle of the week just to make something a little bit new, just freshen it up a little bit. That way everyone can kind of enjoy and then have that same kind of experience that I'm trying to provide with the newer videos. So I hope you enjoy this a lot more than the other one. Coming in with Lamenter's Yellow, I'm going to go over all of the orc armor to give that base coat of yellow. Lamenter's Yellow is a glaze, so it's just tinting the white that's underneath. So I did a few different coats, and we're going to take it a little bit further, a little bit later down the line. Strachan Green for all the orc skin. Mornfang brown for all of the fur and leather straps. Scarsnake green as a dry brush for all of the skin and scaling on the dragon. I'm going to try and get in there pretty tight, and this is going to blend a lot of that shade and green and Kislev flesh into each other. And I'm also going to add Kislev flesh to that Strachan green kind of slowly and just build up where the skin areas are so that that blend is a little more seamless. Using a dry brush of flayed one flesh, I'm going to go over all the membranes on the wings. Cassandora yellow as a shade for all of the orc armor. The reason that I decided to go with yellow for this is because I wanted to match these, or this model rather, to the existing Ironjaw's army that I already have. And a lot of those were done in the very first video that I made, which I'd like to eventually redo. So that's definitely on the list. But the way that I did it in that is different than this. This gets a little bit more of that orange result to it, but it still works really well. So now we're into the Agrax Earthshade, and this is going to go over the brown fur and the leather, and I'm also going to put it on that dead wing flag that the orc is carrying. And what's interesting about that is when I airbrushed it, I did the green, I did the flesh, and I left parts of it kind of blank so that that brown would mix in with that. So the next step that we're doing here is I took some Tamiya masking tape and some gory red, and I masked off pieces where I thought it'd be kind of interesting, where, you know, they would have painted on some stripes or, you know, tribal markings, that kind of thing. So I just put the tape down, did the red, pulled the tape up. So it's not super clean, which is more reminiscent of an orc, and it looks pretty cool. With Ushabti bone, I'm going to edge highlight all of the yellow. I'm also going to use this to go over all of the skulls on the model. So I hit all of the metallics, so the chainmail, there's some individual chains, and the axe head with Leadbelcher. And now I'm going back with Runefang steel and a dry brush to just brighten those up. And I believe we also filled those in with the Agrax Earthshade. Scrag brown with a dry brush on all of the fur and the leather straps. Using off-white, I'm going to hit all of the tops of the rivets on anything that's yellow and the corners just to give that kind of ultimate white highlight. So like that lead belcher earlier that got missed, I also painted in the helmet with Incubi Darkness, and now I'm taking Rust Gray and just using that to edge highlight around some of the features. Using Scrag Brown and Fire Dragon Bright, using a sponge, I'm going to put this on the axe blade to rust it up a little bit. And we're also going to do some Nihilic Oxide in a minute. And I feel that I need to point out that this blade is not made of copper or bronze, so Nihilic Oxide is not the proper choice. And this was shown to me by several people in the most current video, the Lord of Plagues video. And it's funny because I've painted several other models where I was fully aware of this, and then for some reason there's just been a few, including this one, where it just escapes my mind, and I don't know why. It's a weird kind of thing because it obviously isn't rust. I mean, in your head it kind of looks like rust, but it just isn't, because steel doesn't patina like this. But, you know, it's a cool effect. It's fun to use. So just keep in mind that you want to use it on your coppers and your bronze, not your steels. And using Runefang steel still with the sponge, we're going to finish this effect off by sharpening that edge blade and doing kind of a pseudo dry brush over the whole thing. Then coming in with Rhinox hide, I'm going to start doing the battle damage over the yellow armor. And this is just kind of edge highlighting in an irregular stippled on type of pattern, including like I'm putting it on this dude's like front face portion. There's kind of a bend there where I put it on, and then around some of the edges. And we're going to come back in with I think Runefang steel and put a smaller amount in those areas where it's a little bit larger. And that's going to give that effect that paint is being torn away or it's been hit and it's coming down to that bare metal. With Incubi Darkness, I'm going to go back into that helmet and I'm just going to touch up some of those areas and make sure that those edge highlighting lines are crisp and that the Incubi Darkness covers all the areas that it should. I'm also going to go over some of the individual smaller panels on the armor just to give that nice contrast with the yellow with that kind of dark blue. Back to Ushabti Bone. This is going to be used to go over some of those horns, and we're going to try and paint on those lines that you see, you know, in a lot of bones, especially GW bones. For the most part, this works. If you get up close to it, it starts to kind of fall apart, that effect. But, you know, when it's on the table, you can see those stark differences between that kind of brownish underneath, and it gives that look of that bone. I'm also going to use this on this weird, creepy, upside-down doll, and that's just going to brighten it up a little bit more and make it stand out from that wing. Using Mephiston Red, we're going to paint in the head plume and then use Agrax Earthshade over that, and then come back in after that's dried and just pick out those individual strands with that Mephiston Red. Then with Evil Sun Scarlet, come back in on top of those. We're going to try and focus this in the top on the middle, bring those strands on the extreme edges down a little bit further, but still focusing it on top mainly, and then set that up for the final highlight of Fire Dragon Bright. So with Tamiya masking tape and Gory Red, I'm going to go over the flag with the masking tape and just do the entire flag with that red, covering up all of the yellow. Throwing Evil Sun Scarlet in the airbrush, I'm going to go over the top half of that flag. That's going to give it a little bit more of an orangish red look, and in the end I don't think it actually mattered. You can barely tell, so I needed to take that a little bit further. Using Mournfang Brown, I'm going to paint in the flagpole. Using Ashabti Bone, I'm going to paint in the cloth straps on the back of the flag. So while that flag is drying, I'm going to come in with Reikland Flesh Shade. I'm going to go over some of the more skin tone portions that we want, and then highlight with Kislev Flesh. So pretty much on the lips of the dragon and on the Orruk face. And then coming in with this color to kind of line highlight where those bumps are coming off the lips. I also like to use Kislev Flesh on Orc and Goblin skin to just dot the knuckles, which gives it a nice kind of tight skin look. A watered down wash of Seraphim Sepia over all of the horns. Now that that flag is dry, I'm going to pull off all the tape, and that's going to give us that nice lined red and yellow pattern, and that kind of ties in with the rest of the armor and the model. Then using a Ashabti Bone, I'm going to go over all of that decoration on the flag. Then while that's drying a little bit, we're going to pull out Eshin Grey and do the hair on this decapitated head. Then using Reikland Flesh Shade, we're just going to do a quick wash over that head to give the skin tone for now. Trying not to overspill on the rest of the flag, I'm going to use Agrax Earthshade on all of that decoration and just gently put it in between each of those pieces, because I just want it to be concentrated just to give that contrast. Then with Pallid Witch Flesh, I'm going to pick out all of the individual pieces on that decoration to give it its final highlight. Coming in with Druchii Violet, now that that Reikland Flesh shade is dried, we're going to go over this head and give him that kind of purpley dead look. So I'm going to pull this from kind of the top down and a lot over his throat where it's been pretty much ripped off, and that's going to finish this model. So I hope you enjoyed this redo of an old 3-parter. Hope you enjoyed the music and the voice a lot more than what that other video had to offer, and let me know if you'd like to see any more of these redos. Thank you again for joining me on another eBay miniature rescue. I'm Casey, and I will see you in the next video.